January 12, 2025, 11:42 p.m. The operational center at the repurposed Northern Dive Resort. The air is thick with humidity and the smell of insect repellent. The only illumination comes from 6 high-definition tactical displays mounted against the bamboo walls. Outside, the South Pacific surf crashes against the reef with a relentless, heavy thud. Inside, Julian sits motionless. His hands rest on the armrests of his mesh chair, his left index finger tapping its silent, erratic rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. To blind the regional maritime security networks, Julian did not use explosives or physical sabotage. He deployed a second digital payload. 3 hours ago, a precisely targeted denial-of-service attack struck the underwater fiber-optic trunk line connecting the regional telecommunications hub in Suva to the international gateway. The attack simulated a massive routing loop error within the core border gateway protocol. It did not destroy anything. It simply flooded the regional data switches with billions of phantom traffic requests. For the next 12 hours, the maritime surveillance centers in Brisbane and Honolulu are effectively blind to this specific sector of the Pacific. Their satellite downlinks remain operational, but the terrestrial data processing pipelines that flag anomalous ship movements are jammed with digital noise. Julian looks across the room at Marcus. The large logistics manager stands over a long wooden table, inspecting the final assembly of a low-altitude tactical payload. The distraction is holding, Julian says. His voice is flat, lacking any trace of adrenaline. Deploy the first wave. Marcus nods once. He speaks into his throat microphone, his voice sharp and low. All teams, this is Horizon Control. Launch Phase 1. Clear the bays. On the beach behind the resort, 5 large canvas tents collapse simultaneously. Beneath them sit 20 aluminum launch rails, angled toward the Black Ocean. The 35 operators move with practiced, silent efficiency. They wear dark gray tactical uniforms without flags, insignia, or name tapes. They are ghosts operating in a gray zone. The sound begins as a low, angry buzz, like 1,000 hornets trapped in a metal drum. It is the sound of 80 industrial quadcopters spooling their rotors to maximum velocity. One by one, the drones lift into the night air. They do not carry lights. Their matte black carbon fiber frames disappear against the moonless sky within seconds. They climb to an altitude of 400 feet, out of earshot from the ground, and immediately lock into their pre-programmed swarm formation. They communicate silently via their localized mesh network, exchanging position data 300 times per second. They do not rely on GPS. They track their location using terrain mapping optical sensors that compare the dark coastline below against preloaded satellite imagery. The target is the capital town of Olo, exactly 12 miles to the south. The primary objective is not destruction. It is the absolute neutralization of the territory's communication and administrative infrastructure. By 12:15 a.m., the first swarm hovers directly above the Central Police Barracks in Olo. The local officers are asleep inside their corrugated iron quarters. The drones descend vertically, settling onto the roof plates of the building's generator shed and the primary radio tower. A second swarm hovers above the regional administrative building, where the territory's sole satellite uplink terminal sits on a concrete pad. Julian watches the live telemetry feeds on his screen. 80 green triangles move across his digital map, shifting and adjusting in perfect synchronization. He presses a macro key on his keyboard. Execute, he says. The drones do not drop bombs. They release targeted, high-intensity electromagnetic pulse canisters, compact, capacitor-driven devices funded by Julian's stolen millions and engineered in the underground labs of Bangkok. The canisters detonate with a dull, metallic pop that is entirely audible only to anyone standing within 10 feet. Instantly, the lights across Olo flicker and die. The central radio tower emits a brief shower of green sparks as its transceivers fry. Inside the police barracks, the backup generator winds to a halt, its electronic control panel completely melted. The satellite uplink terminal on the administrative building goes dark. Within 90 seconds, the Maruka atolls are completely cut off from the rest of the planet. They are an island of 22,000 people, entirely isolated in the middle of the ocean, with no way to call for help. Now comes the physical occupation. 3 rigid-hull inflatable boats, each powered by twin 250-horsepower outboard motors, scream out of the northern lagoon. They carry 24 of Marcus's foreign operators, armed with suppressed automatic rifles and non-lethal crowd control gear. They land on the main concrete pier of Olo at 12:35 a.m. There is no resistance. The 2 local police officers on night watch duty are sitting on overturned plastic crates, trying to light a kerosene lantern in the sudden blackout. Before they can stand, 4 operators surround them, their rifle lights blinding the officers. The operators do not speak English or the local dialect. They use plastic zip ties to bind the officers' wrists and ankles. They place them gently against the wall of the customs shed. The movement is professional, calm, and utterly devoid of anger. By 2 a.m., every government building in Olo is secured. The territory's administrator, a local politician named Silas, who had spent years pocketing foreign aid money, is awakened in his bedroom by Marcus himself. Silas sits up in his bed, blinking against the glare of a tactical flashlight. "Who are you?" Silas stammering, his voice trembling. "Is this a coup?" Marcus drops a ruggedized tablet onto the bedsheets. The screen displays a digital wallet interface showing a balance of $2 million in a USD-pegged stablecoin. "It's an acquisition, Silas," Marcus says, his voice flat. "That money is yours. The keys are encrypted. You can retire to Auckland or Brisbane tomorrow on a private charter flight that is already waiting at the Grass airstrip. In exchange, you signed these executive orders 3 hours ago. They name our security firm as the sole administrative and logistical authority for the Moruca territory for the next 99 years. Sign the physical copies, and you walk out of here a rich man." Silas looks at the tablet, then looks at the dark silhouette of the armed operator standing in his doorway. He realizes there is no army coming to save him. The radio is dead. The phones are dead. The world doesn't even know his island has changed hands. He reaches for the pen. For the first 48 hours, Julian's plan functions with absolute, terrifying precision. The physical world bends to his logic just as easily as the software networks he had spent his life manipulating. He moves his headquarters from the dive resort into the main administrative building in Olo. The locals are confused, frightened, but largely passive. The power grid is restored within 12 hours, not by the old diesel generators, but by 3 massive shipping containers of industrial lithium-ion battery banks that Julian had imported under the guise of resort hardware. The town has more reliable electricity than it has seen in decades. Julian establishes a new security perimeter. The drones patrol the airspace constantly, their silent shapes tracking the movements of every vehicle and fishing boat. He sets up a localized cellular network, providing free data access to every resident. Every phone on the island now routes through Julian's central server. He reads their messages. He monitors their sentiment. He tracks their movements. He tells himself he is protecting them. He tells himself this is what efficient governance looks like. But human systems are not lines of code. They do not handle unexpected variables with predictable error logs. The first fracture begins on the 3rd morning, not from an international intervention, but from a simple human miscalculation. A local fisherman named Kalen, whose family had fished the outer reefs of Moruca for 3 generations, takes his small wooden motorized skiff out of the lagoon at 4:30 a.m. He did not read the digital notices Julian sent to every mobile phone. He does not understand why there are armed men in gray uniforms sitting at the concrete pier. He only knows that his family needs fish to sell at the morning market. As Kalen clears the channel, an automated drone patrol flags his boat as an unauthorized maritime departure. The algorithm determines the vessel is violating the active security lockdown. It dispatches a tactical quadcopter to intercept. The drone hovers 50 feet above Kalen's boat, its rotors kicking up a spray of salt water. A pre-recorded message plays from its onboard speaker, ordering the boat to return to port immediately. Kalen is terrified. He thinks the machine is some kind of demonic entity or a foreign weapon. In his panic, he reaches for an old, rusted, single-shot shotgun he keeps under his bench for protection against sharks. He fires a single blast at the sky. The lead shot tears through two of the drone's carbon fiber rotors. The machine loses stability, flips wildly, and crashes into the sea. The mesh network responds instantly to the loss of a node. The algorithm classifies the incident not as a confused fisherman, but as an active, hostile, anti-air engagement. It immediately commands 3 nearby combat-configured drones to reinforce the sector. Before Julian or Marcus can review the live feed, the automated system executes its threat mitigation protocol. The 3 drones descend on the skiff, their optical sensors locking onto the man holding the firearm. They detonate their explosive payloads 20 feet above the water. The explosion is heard clearly in the town of Olo, 2 miles away. By noon, the news of Kalen's death spreads through the territory like a wildfire through dry brush. The free electricity and cellular data mean nothing now. The passivity of the local population evaporates, replaced by a deep, ancient rage. A crowd of 400 locals gathers outside the administrative building. They are not armed with military rifles, but they carry machetes, iron bars, and boat oars. They scream Kalen's name. They demand the white men leave their island. Inside the office, Marcus stands at the window, his hand resting on the grip of his rifle. "The crowd is growing, Vance," Marcus says, his jaw tight. "My men can clear the square, but it's going to get bloody. We need to deploy the crowd control drones now before they breach the gates." Julian sits at his desk, staring at the telemetry of the incident. For the first time, his left finger stops tapping. He looks at the image of Kalen's destroyed wooden skiff floating in the lagoon. The math had been perfect. The drones were cheaper than soldiers. The logic was unassailable. But the logic had failed to account for a frightened man with a rusted shotgun. "If we fire on them, Marcus," Julian says softly, "we aren't a new kind of state. We're just another occupying army." "We are an occupying army," Marcus snaps, turning away from the window. "You wanted physical sovereignty? This is what it costs. You don't get to buy an island with stolen crypto and expect everyone to love you for it. Either we hold the line or we get torn apart by a mob." Julian doesn't answer. He looks at his monitor. A red alert flashes on his screen. It is an external system notification from his deep space satellite monitoring array. A high-altitude Australian long-range maritime patrol aircraft has just altered its flight path from its base in Queensland. It is heading directly toward the Maruka Atolls. The denial of service attack on the fiber line has been mitigated by international engineers. The regional powers have noticed the complete communication blackout of a sovereign territory, and they are coming to investigate. The digital fortress is crumbling from the outside. The physical fortress is burning from within. Julian looks at his keyboard. He realizes that the code cannot save him now. He can rewrite a firewall, but he cannot rewrite the history of a people who refuse to be managed by an algorithm. He cannot compile a solution for human grief. "Order the men to stand down, Marcus," Julian says. His voice is barely a whisper. "Evacuate the base. We are leaving." Marcus stares at him with pure disgust. "You're a coward, Vance. You spent $200 million just to run away the first time a variable didn't align with your spreadsheet?" "The experiment is over, Marcus," Julian says, closing his laptop. "We lost the data 6 hours later. An unmarked twin-engine cargo plane lifts off from the grass airstrip of Maruka, clearing the palm trees by mere inches. Inside the dark cabin, Julian sits alone on an aluminum crate. He carries no leather duffel bag this time. His servers are abandoned in the Olo administrative office, their hard drives wiping themselves via a remote thermite script he triggered as he walked out the door. Below him, the lights of Olo fade into the vast, indifferent blackness of the Pacific Ocean. The regional patrol aircraft would land the next morning. The Australian authorities would find an island shaken, a local politician who had vanished with millions in unfreezable digital currency, and a population that had looked into the face of a new kind of power and rejected it. Julian Vance would disappear back into the gray zone architecture of the internet. He would never return to Bucharest. He would never buy another piece of physical Earth. The story of the Maruka Atolls remains a classified footnote in the archives of maritime intelligence agencies. A strange, brief moment when the digital world attempted to violently colonize the physical. It leaves behind a cold, modern truth. We live in an era where a single individual can harness enough digital energy to bypass the financial and logistical gatekeepers of traditional empires. A programmer can build an army out of code, crypto, and silicon. But physical sovereignty is not merely a matter of wealth or technological superiority. It is rooted in the messy, unquantifiable realities of human identity, territory, and blood. You can hack a system, you can manipulate a market, you can blind a satellite, but you cannot code a country.